My name is Natasha Smith, and I'm just going to read out the blog post that I wrote about my experience on the 24th of June, Sunday 24th of June. The title is, Please God, Please Make It Stop. I have been forced to leave Cairo prematurely following a horrific sexual and physical attack in Tahrir Square. The atmosphere was one of jubilation, excitement and happiness as I walked, accompanied by 2 male companions for safety, along Qasr El Nil Bridge. I had had an awful day, caused by some problems, emotional problems, so I was so happy to be in such a wonderful environment, getting such amazing footage. Women, children and fathers smiled, waved and cheered happily at the camera, calling out the widely used phrase, "Welcome to Egypt! Welcome!" Fireworks lit up the sky. It was a moving and captivating experience. Just as I realised I'd reached the end of the bridge, I noticed the crowd became thicker, and decided immediately to turn around to avoid Tahrir Square. My friends and I tried to leave. I tried to put my camera back in my rucksack. But in a split second, everything changed. Men had been groping me for a little while, but suddenly something shifted. I found myself being dragged from my male friend, groped all over, with increasing force and aggression. I screamed. I could see what was happening, and I saw that I was powerless to stop it. I couldn't believe I had got into this situation. My friend did everything he could to hold on to me, but hundreds of men were dragging me away, kicking and screaming. I was pushed onto a small platform as the crowd surged, where I was hunched over, determined to protect my camera. But it was no use. My camera was snatched from my grasp. My rucksack was torn from my back. It was so crowded that I didn't even feel it. The mob stumbled off the platform, and I twisted my ankle. Men began to rip off my clothes. I was stripped naked. Their insatiable appetite to hurt me heightened. These men, hundreds of them, had turned from humans to animals. Hundreds of men pulled my limbs apart and threw me around. They were scratching and clenching my breasts and forcing their fingers inside me in every possible way. So many men. All I could see was leering faces, more and more faces sneering and jeering as I was tossed around like fresh meat among starving lions. I shouted, "Salam! Salam! Allah! Allah!" In my desperate state I also shouted, "Ma salama," or salama, which actually means goodbye. Just about the worst possible thing to say to a horde of men trying to ruin me. I might as well have yelled, "Goodbye, cruel world! Down I go!" A small minority of men, just a couple at first, tried to protect me and guide me to a tent. The tent was crushed, its contents scattered into shards all over the ground. I was barefoot as they stole my nice new shoes. I was tossed around once more, being violated every second. I was dragged naked across the dirty ground. Men pulled my blonde hair. The men trying to protect me tried to guide me into another tent. I was able to scramble onto the ground somehow. I sat with my back against a chair and surveyed the surging mob. Although a few men tried to form a human shield around me, offering me rags to cover my bruised body, men were still able to touch me. There were just too many. I felt surprisingly calm. I understood what was happening and just transcended into a detached state of mind. I gazed around at the bared teeth and raging eyes. The tent began to collapse, and I was cloaked in a huge sheet. I was struggling to breathe. One man lifted a tent pole and attempted to strike me with it. At this point, I said aloud to myself, calmly, over and over, "Please God, please make it stop. Please God, please make it stop." I'm not religious, but at times of desperation, we all feel compelled to appeal to some higher power to save us. It's human nature. The need to feel safe and loved is what compels many to reach for religion in the first place. An ambulance forced its way through the crowd. It opened its doors and was invaded by tens of men. It closed up and drove away. I began to think, maybe this is just it. Maybe this is how I go, how I die. I've had a good life. Whether I live or die, this will all be over soon. Maybe this is my punishment for some of the bad judgment and foolish mistakes I've made recently. I hope it's quick. I hope I die before they rape me. I looked up and saw a couple of women in burqas scattered around. They looked at me blankly, then looked away. After 5 to 10 minutes, my friend managed to convince people inside a medical tent to form a pathway through the crowd and drive to guide me into the tent. During transit, I was mauled and invaded once more. I reached the tent and saw my friend Callum. Muslim women surrounded me and frantically tried to cover my naked body. I fell to the ground and temporarily lost consciousness. The women told me the attack was motivated by rumours spread by troublemaking thugs that I was a foreign spy, following a national advertising campaign warning of the dangers of foreigners. But if that was the cause, it only seemed to really be used as a pretext, an excuse to molest and violate a blonde young Western girl. The men outside remained thirsty for blood. Their prey had been cruelly snatched from their grasp. They peered in, so I had to duck down and hide. They attempted to attack the tent, and those inside began making a barricade out of chairs. They wanted my blood. Women were crying and telling me, "This is not Egypt, this is not Islam. Please, please do not think this is what Egypt is." I reassured her that I knew this was the case, that I loved Egypt and its culture and people, and of the innate peacefulness of moderate Islam. She appeared stunned. But I'm not really a vengeful person, and I could see through the situation. This vicious act was not representative of the place I had come to know and love. After much heated debate, it was decided that Callum and I would leave separately to avoid attracting attention. I was disguised in a burqa and men's clothes, and ordered to hold the hand of an Egyptian stranger who would pretend to be my husband. I was terrified, but I could see it was the only way out, and had to decide to trust him. He pulled me through the crowds out of the back of the tent. He told me, "Don't cry. Do not cry. Look normal." I was barefoot, dodging broken glass and debris, trawling through mud and dirt. My inner reserves of strength kicked in, and I stopped crying and just thought, keep calm and carry on. My trousers had clearly belonged to someone much fatter, because they were falling down. I thought I was being led to an ambulance or to a hospital. The man sat me down by the side of the road, ordering me not to cry. Eventually, his friends turned up, with Callum. They explained they couldn't take us to hospital since they might be arrested if they were seen with us. One man helpfully suggested, "You want to go to McDonald's? Get some food?" I declined this generous offer of culinary compensation for the evening's events. Surprisingly, I wasn't really in the mood for a Big Mac. Finally, I was taken home by my friends and put to bed. I didn't want to tell my family right away, as I knew it would destroy them. Yesterday, I had a proper examination and darted around sorting things out, spending an eternity giving a police report. People with me were reduced to tears, but I didn't really feel like crying. People kept telling me, "You're being so brave," but I just felt like getting on with it. Maybe it will catch up with me in a few days, I don't know. A few things yesterday made me realise the impact this has had on me. During the examination, which was carried out by a woman, I was crying and shaking. To have someone touch me so soon after the event was terrifying. Later, I couldn't bear to be around groups of Egyptian men, and when it got dark, I panicked and couldn't bear to look any man in the eye. I clung to Callum all day. As we drove around Cairo, I couldn't help thinking, of all the people who we've driven past today, one of them must have been in that crowd of hundreds last night. Just one. I am determined to continue with my documentary at some point. I have no equipment, not even any of my photos. I'm nervous about the possibility of not getting my insurance to cover all the equipment costs and everything taken from me, and no money to resume the process. But I'll get there. I have to find a silver lining to this experience. I have to spread awareness. It's my duty to do so. I have to do this. I will not be driven into submission. I'll overcome it and come back stronger and wiser. My new documentary will be fueled by my passion to help make people aware of just how serious this issue is, and that it's not just a passing news story that briefly gets people's attention and is then forgotten. This is a consistent trend, and it has to stop. Arab women, Western women, there are so many sufferers. I am determined to return to this wonderful country and city that I love, and meet its people once again. I am determined to challenge the stereotypes and preconceptions that people have of Arab women back in the UK and the US especially. I have so much to say, and I will say it in time. So, to anyone taking risks, whether in the UK or worldwide, please take care and don't make the same mistakes that I did. Don't be swept up in a wave of euphoria. Don't let anything cloud your judgment. I was not focused enough because I was distracted by the wonderful atmosphere that cheered me up after a difficult day. But don't let yourself become a victim either. Don't let bad experiences ruin your life and determine your future. One of the worst things 2 nights ago was that I had never felt so powerless. I had no control, and I was violated. But now I can take control and rebuild my confidence and learn from my experience. Nothing and nobody will hold me back. When I'm ready, I'll finish this. The show must go on. Thank you very much for reading.